All right. Well, welcome to our next episode of the Parkway podcast. So thankful for you joining in. And we have a great episode planned for you today. So basically, today we're going to be talking about the state of the entertainment industry. I am joined by both Todd and Michael, who are part of the Parkway team. And today we are joined by Scott Ragsdale, who is an audio professional in the entertainment world. And Scott, thank you so much for being a part of our podcast today. Before we dive into everything and before we kind of give you an opportunity, Scott, to share with our listeners and our viewers a little bit about who you are, I believe a lot of them will know who you are and a lot of them may not. And so we just want to give you an opportunity to kind of give us a background on who you are. But before we dive into that, how's everybody been doing over this weekend, over the past couple of weeks? I just want to kind of check in. Todd seems like he's on the water, relaxing today here in Michigan.
Did you notice them waves out there aren't moving? I don't know if you picked up on that or not.
Yeah,
very calm lake.
That is the lake that you live on, though, right?
It is, yep.
All right, man. That's the dream right there.
That's where I spend my time.
Yeah.
Skimming across the water.
I know both Michael and I have done some events over the weekend, and so my last week has been crazy busy, just all over the place every day. And then on top of that, like some people that I know have been like in contact with COVID and people who have gotten COVID, and so they've gotten tested. And I think I let you guys know this morning, but the results just came back in and it's negative. So I don't have it, which means all of you probly don't have it, which is a good thing.
Nice. That's a win.
Which is why we're all sitting somewhere else than in the studio.
Yeah.
Right.
We didn't have the test results back in time.
Yeah. But I mean, COVID has been crazy and it's really affected a lot of industries, right? More than just the entertainment industry, but that's kind of our focus today. And Scott, why don't you just give us a little bit of your background? Both Michael and I are like, we kind of look up to you. And kind of, you're always looking for people who do what you do, but do it better. And you kind of look up to them and you're always trying to get better at what you do. And so you try to surround yourself or get inspired by people who have been doing it for a while. And Scott, you've been mixing audio for a long time. So why don't you give us a little bit of that background and just let us all know a little bit about your history?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I believe it's one of those things, you just stay in the game long enough, you get experience and, these things seem to happen. I don't even know really where to start, in the sense of how far back do I go? Because, I mean, I've been a part of the music scene so long. I kind of sometimes start as a musician because I was a musician in my late teens and 20s. Became a keyboard player in basically an 80s cover band. I put myself through college playing music in clubs and proms and everything else. And, that's kind of my, really the birthplace of everything that I do now. Such a training ground in so many levels. And then ended up, after I finally got out of college, it took me 8 years to get my bachelor's degree because I was too busy playing music. Kind of started in a church, basically in a youth group mixing, and was there for in this church for 7 years in the St. Louis area, and met a lot of people in St. Louis. I still have a huge network there, which we'll talk about later, what's going on now with me. And from there, ended up going up to Chicago to Willow Creek. Actually, the couple that brought me to Chicago were working in a church in St. Louis called Grace Church, and they went on staff at Willow Creek, and when there was a position, they called me and brought me up there, and I was on staff there from 2001 to 2014, and just did all kinds of things. And even during that time, I ended up working for Oprah Winfrey and got pulled into some amazing events with her, and that's all on my resume and looks really nice. Big game changer. And then ended up after that working for this guitar player by the name of Joe Bonamassa. And that was yet again, to me, just another gift and another amazing adventure for 5 years in 28 countries and about every venue that I think I'd ever want a bucket list. And my name got put on live DVDs and CDs, and that's been all amazing and fun. But truthfully, I just love mixing music. I love being around creative people, and I just never left it. And somehow I got good at it. Made a lot of mistakes along the way, but without failing, you don't advance in life. So you just stay in the game. And that's what I did. And I'm still in the game, even through this COVID thing, which has probably been one of the most difficult things for the live event industry. I've never seen anything, or I don't think anybody else has seen anything that has stopped an industry in such a way where, you can't figure it out. I mean, I'm a fixer. I've been working since I was 15. I grew up in a very small farming community of about 1,500 people. And I've been baling hay and cutting grass and everything else from a young age. So I'm not used to not being productive. And this has not been an easy time. And I know it's not been an easy time for a lot of people. And, based on what we're about to talk about, I've got some stories, and it's almost survival skills right now. And from mental health to just figuring it out and trying to, unfortunately, figure out plan Bs. So, if you just want to sum me up, I love what I do. I'm a live sound engineer, and I've been doing it a while now, and hopefully going to be able to do it again. And don't know the capacity yet, but that's a very brief and hopefully okay, bio for me.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. That
Great.
definitely breaks it down in a palatable form. But I know it's probably a lot deeper than that, and there's a lot of experience in there, a lot of wisdom. But yeah, I mean, so I know people in the industry as well who are not working. Like everything has shut down, right? People who are either audio engineers, or they're artists, or they play in a band for an artist who tours regularly around the country and the world. And so their income immediately stopped. Even if they live in Nashville and everything was shut down, it's like, I can't even go to the bar to pick up a little gig to just play, right? For a moment in time there. And so there's been a lot of that happening. And so I don't know. I guess what we really wanted to dive into today is how that's impacting when we say entertainment industry, we're not just talking about those who perform. We're also talking about the venues that put on these shows, whether it's an arena, a stadium, a bar. I think of a lot of places in Grand Rapids, like the Intersection and 20 Monroe Live. They bring in a lot of artists, and everything is just shut down. And when we think entertainment industry, we're also thinking like Beyonce and Jay-Z. But I mean, there's a wide range of entertainers. There's people who who are magicians, and that's how they make their living. There's all sorts of entertainment that's happening that we either do or don't know about. And all of those people are out of work. And Michael, I know that at one point you shared a video that showed a lot of people talking about how they're not working right now. And so,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
what's been your
I
feedback?
actually think I got that off of Scott. I think I got that off of Scott's Facebook page, actually.
Very possible.
I think there was
I've tried to
six
post some
million
things.
6 million people.
Six-
Yeah,
Oh, it was actually,
like
well, it
6
was actually
million people in
12
entertainment.
million worldwide.
12 million.
Worldwide.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's from
I
ticket takers
think it
to,
was US.
yeah, there's been several of them put
The
out there.
venue. Yeah. Yeah. But support staff, caterers. I mean, yeah, it goes on and on and on. So
Yeah, so when we think entertainment, we're thinking the artist and the personnel that makes the show happen. But then it's like, who's providing the food? Who's providing this? All the things you don't think of that happen, right?
Right. Well, right. That's all behind the scenes. And if you've seen so many of the latest things about awareness, the red alert, people don't know certain people exist, from bus drivers, truck drivers, like you said, catering, chefs, just there's so many personnel and moving parts in a tour it's kind of the iceberg thing. The little tip is, the artist, and underneath that is a huge team of people. And they're usually freelance contract individuals that don't pay into unemployment. It's a handshake deal. There's no contracts signed. It's been a real trust system that's worked for a long, long time. And now COVID. And so, they're looking for a life raft, so to speak. And everybody's at a different place. And it's a very scary time.
One of the things that Michael had put on our radar at one point early on was one of the industries that really helps support, these artists that tour is rental companies. Rental companies who, have PA systems and mixers and microphones and all the things, the lighting and video, all of those things. And that's really been a huge um, place that has really felt this as well. Michael, what were the numbers that you had reported to us earlier about some of those companies having to lay off like hundreds of people because there was nothing to really support?
Well, both you and I have friends in that realm, and obviously rental companies across the country have just suffered greatly because of it. Gosh, I don't even know where to begin with that. I hear about places closing. I hear about mergers taking place. Larger companies buying smaller companies to take over. There's just a lot of movement going on.
Yeah.
What have you heard, Scott?
I would have to say, the closest company I have to this is Special Event Services. They've kept me working for a lot of years, and they've done most of the people that I've ever done mixing for, Christian and, in the rock, jazz, and country world. They had to lay everybody off 1 week after COVID. They furloughed everybody. And it was that evidence what was about to happen, and it gave their staff a chance to immediately get plugged into, whatever the state had to offer through unemployment. And also, the other thing is to keep things afloat. I mean, here you've got a company that's got over 100 trucks, many PAs, lighting, the big stages. If Billy Joel goes and does a show at Wrigley Field, that stage is from SES. All the white chairs are from SES. All the white covering on the floor is from SES. They got into tour buses. So they've got a bunch of Prevost buses that were ready to be leased to artists that are sitting there. They're leveraged. They just built a brand new headquarters that the excitement to move in there, and it was going to be their banner year. I was talking to one of the owners just 2 weeks ago, and I'll sum it up this way. I'm not going to give you real numbers, but if they made $100 in 2019, they're going to make $2 in 2020.
Wow.
That's how bad it is.
Wow.
And think about
you're talking tens of millions of dollars in assets, just sitting there.
Right. And, and it's capitalism, bills need to get paid. I mean, we don't mind that, but when your industry or the very way you make money is completely shut down, what do you do? I mean, obviously the PPP loans and all this really awesome, thank you very much, things are happening. Is it going to be enough over the long term? Who knows? I mean, it's unfortunately, again, very scary, and who knows?
So, Scott, you're on the side of, hey, I get employed through these events, right? And our company, Parkway, we're more on the back side of it, right? Where we're helping install systems in venues that you might come to, and along with your artists or whomever you're supporting. But Todd, you have a lot of connections, and we've worked with a lot of venues here in the West Michigan area and surrounding. But those places have also been impacted. I know that we were kind of putting together some numbers for some of our clients here in West Michigan. And tell us a little bit about that, what that journey's been like from before COVID to after COVID.
Well, yeah, I mean, if there's no entertainment coming in, the it's just amazing to me if I go down through Grand Rapids and see our largest facilities are sitting there empty, doing absolutely nothing. Just the amazing cost it takes to keep those afloat. Luckily in Grand Rapids, I think most of our venues are city owned, and they've done very well over many years. So I think they had, I don't know the facts on all this, but I think they're hanging in there probably better than others may be. But just to go completely black, yeah, I had been doing for the last year and a half a lot of budgeting for a lot of entertainment venues that were looking at major upgrades, and that's just completely stopped. So I've had to kind of go out and re-explore some different avenues to try to bring business into Parkway, because that just wasn't going to happen. To talk about, and then the trickle down of that, it's not just the venue, but the hotels, the restaurants, everything around those facilities where those people coming into those venues are supported by it's done. It's till who knows when.
We've had a number of those bars close as well.
Yeah.
Permanently.
Mm. Yeah.
It'll be amazing to see what happens when everything gets rolling again. But how many of those are going to recover, and how quickly? I just hope and pray that when we get to that point, everything goes very quickly. That everything ramps up really fast. I got to believe there's people that are just sitting like you, Scott, that are just antsy to get back out there and do something again.
Chomping.
I hope it takes off quickly. That's my prayer, is that we just get back at it really quick. We don't ease into it too. I know there's some things we have to be careful with. Just turn on your TV at night and you'll hear all kinds of that. But
yeah,
once we have some kind of a clearing here, I hope that things ramp up quickly and we get back at it. So yeah, it's been tough. I know a number of people that run those facilities, and yeah, what do? You do what you can, and they're trying to keep their employees going too. So not easy.
Scott, you're located, are you in St. Louis? I know you're in Missouri, correct?
No, I'm in Southern Illinois, but I always say St. Louis because I'm only like 41 miles from St. Louis.
Okay.
Off Interstate 64.
Now, what's it been like there? I mean, what have you been experiencing just in the same kind of vein as far as like the entertainment side of things? Like, is it the same?
Well, St. Louis has tried a few things. I was kind of amazed seeing at the Riverport Amphitheater. It's not called that anymore. Whoever owns it today, that's what it was called when I used to work there. They used the parking lot, and they did a parking lot, big screen situation, had a full PA. But the max number of people they could get in there was like 4,000.
Okay.
And they're sitting in the parking lot of a venue that seats 20,000.
Oh wow.
So monetarily, it's
a wash almost.
It's such a joke. I mean, you're and it was like Brad Paisley, Nelly, and this Pink Floyd cover band, all great artists, but only 4,000 people, and so there was no. The PA was set up for 3 days from a local vendor in St. Louis, Logic Systems, and then it all went back to the shop, and that was it. Just trying things to see, monetarily, will it work? Will people show up? Will people behave? Will they follow the rules? How do we, just all the learnings, trying to get some learnings, trying to get some understanding. So much of these things are state by state. There's things even with live events that you need an insurance liability policy. And right now, no insurance company really wants to touch you. It's kind of like buying flood insurance and your house is sitting underwater. Yeah. They're not going to sell it to you. And who's responsible for all the CDC guideline stuff? Who pays for the masks that have to maybe be offered? Are the temperature control systems, there are so many conversations happening right now on going forward, things that will probably need to be in place. It's going to be a new reality, and who pays for those things? I've heard things that artist guarantees are going away, or they're just going to be lessened. Like a major artist would know pre-COVID what their budget was going to be, 100%. And they were able to do a budget for crew, trucks, buses, staging, whatever. They knew how to budget. Well, now, how are you going to get to make a budget if you don't even know what your guarantee is going to be? So they're predicting smaller crews, unknowns, who takes responsibility for, tickets unsold.
Wow.
And then you've got
Wow.
artists that aren't even going to walk on the stage because they're in the high risk demographic.
Oh,
So I've got guys out. I've got guys out of work for who knows when, because their artist is not going to walk out in front of thousands of people. See, there's so many things with COVID that are, just these triggers or these, things that will keep people from working that, again, want to get back to work.
No, have you been hearing?
Well, and let's say,
Go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say, a year from now, even if things go back to normal, we still have to get over the public fear of people going to concerts.
Absolutely.
So your audience is never really going to be the same again.
Well, and that's where all these, metrics and data is coming from. And I mean, as they study behaviors, even going to a church, it's in the, someone's best interest right now not to go out in public, not to risk. I mean, I just lost a cousin of mine, just lost her husband. He was 58 years old to COVID. This was just 2 weeks ago. So, it's a real thing. It's, and you just don't know, and I'm a pretty brave guy. I'm pretty bold. I mean, I do wear my mask and all that stuff, and would be willing to probably take a few risks here and there, but not everybody's like that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We're all different. You can't I mean, in our day and age, you do not put the word all and everybody in your argument ever, because it's never all or everybody. Okay. I just want to, that's a 2-cent piece right there.
Just like in marriage counseling, they
2
say,
cents.
don't ever use always and never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then you got the whole media thing. Nobody wants to have their event scrutinized, like we are today. You do anything right now.
Yeah.
Just don't. I mean, we were having those conversations within our own church. We were going to do an outdoor service, but we thought, gosh, you don't want to be that church that shows up at the evening news.
Yeah.
Right. I just had local sports here in Michigan opened. Some of the high schools are able to play, and the school that I attended ended up in the news because the students who weren't supposed to be there snuck in and went around the back of the stadium. We're standing on the back of the fence. Nobody, of course, wearing masks. 17-year-olds aren't that smart. So anyway,
Nor was I at that
shows
age.
up in the news, right? And it's like, nobody wants to be that today. You don't dare do anything without having that scrutinization too from the media and other people, what you do and how you do it. And it just makes everything even more difficult. So
Scott and the rest of the guys, have you guys been hearing anything about what is going on overseas, internationally? Because I'm a big UFC fan, right? And so UFC is a great example of how they've shifted during this time. They created their own Vegas venue that's fully controlled, and they're doing all these tests for when people walk in for these events. But obviously nobody's attending the events, and they're all televised. But, and then they have the Abu Dhabi thing happening where it's called Fight Island. And so I don't know what's happening across the seas. And so I didn't know, Scott, if you had heard, is anything happening over there that's allowing for, any live events to occur? Have you heard anything there?
What I've heard, and we worked with or I should say I worked with a company called AdLib in Liverpool, England for most of the Joe Bonamassa tours, and great guys. They're kind of in our exact place where things are shut down. I don't know if it really matters what part of the world you live in per se. the live events industry is on a streaming basis, limited, and yeah, they're basically under the same rules that we are right now.
Yeah.
I see the guys kind of joining the same campaigns. They're even creating their own campaigns, trying to get their government to fiscally give some relief, to the situation, just like we are in America. Because they've got all the gear that we do sitting in a warehouse that does one thing: live events.
Yeah.
And they can't drive it anywhere. So it's kind of the same story.
What's interesting to me is that, humans in general are pretty innovative, right? We always innovate. We're always innovating new things, new ways to approach. I think of Travis Scott, who's a rapper, and he did a concert on what's that video game called? Fortnite. So everybody who plays Fortnite around the world could go into this like certain room or whatever, certain place. And he was literally performing live, as, animated, and everybody's like kind of hanging out. And so that was pretty innovative, for his fans and that sort of thing. I still haven't seen something that's like that we've done on a grand scale to really push out to the masses so that a lot of people can kind of engage with artists or music or movies. I mean, even movie theaters are shut down. They're starting to open them back up slowly, depending on where you live. But have you guys encountered anything like that? Any word coming from the industry as how we're trying to innovate so that we can kind of open back up really and really make opportunities for people?
I can tell you one thing I saw in St. Louis. A young man, basically just like us, talked to the city of St. Louis and has one of those portable stages and set up a situation where they did almost a checkerboard with blocks that had artificial turf on them, and they were kind of roped off. So when you came in, you had your section of square to stand on. Lots of arrows, lots of, things to make sure you walk the right way and travel the way you're supposed to in this COVID, time. And you could not go get any of your concessions. You ordered all your concessions from an app on your phone and it was brought to you. And I was getting excited as I was listening to this entire model. Then the amount of people he's able to have on this parking lot right outside Busch Stadium was 250 people. So it was I should say C level bands.
Obviously.
and guess what? They were selling out in 30 minutes. People are that hungry. No matter what, they want to go see a live concert like we all do. But again, look at the numbers. The only thing I've really seen working right now are people that have got the streaming figured out in a controlled situation. And that's working. And
how lucrative is that though?
That was my question.
That's
somehow you got to collect on that or it ain't going to do you any good.
Right.
For the industry anyway. There's,
I wish I knew numbers. I don't have numbers. I've seen my friends that did most of the corporate gigs, they're doing pretty well. They've set up streaming studios and their audiences are being reached. A good friend of mine mixes front of house for Tony Robbins. He had 22,000 on a Zoom call.
Wow.
And they just did Australia from his studio is in West Palm Beach. They did 9,000 plus in Australia by streaming on a Zoom call. So those people are kind of figuring it out. At the same time, I know from my friend, still monetarily, it's not the same.
Right.
It's less. So
how much can you charge somebody for tuning in and from their living room?
That's a great question. I didn't look at what they were charging, but
yeah. It's not the same as like, hey, I'm getting a front row seat to go see Coldplay. That's not the same as I'm watching them from the living room.
And I want to say what Todd just said. Hotels are losing out. Air travel's losing out. Rental cars are losing out. Local restaurants are losing out. Local bars are losing out. The entire industry that, upholds so many businesses. They're all losing out. It's a big trickle down effect.
So sad.
Yeah, it really is. Well, one thing that, Scott, we touched upon earlier before the show was something that I wanted to add, because you're very connected to the church world, which all of us are. We all attend. We are all believers. And we talked about how is interesting. Everything else shut down. We all know of churches that are probably struggling throughout this time. But what's really surprising to me is that there are a lot of churches, like a really good amount, that really have not felt the financial strain of COVID. I know several churches that I'm connected to, they're like, giving's not gone down. If anything, it's gone up. I know, Michael, you've reported something similar. Todd, you've heard that as well. And so, Scott, I wanted to get your perspective on that. Like, so is the church kind of on the forefront of, do we have an opportunity here to kind of lead as to what the future could look like for the entertainment industry? Like, what are your 2 cents on that?
Well, it's interesting kind of blending the two, I look at the church world, like I was in the rock and roll world, and I joined the church world back in the early 90s when this amazing woman named Darlene Check released a song called Shout to the Lord. And this entity called Hillsong revolutionized the American church. Suddenly you could pick guitars, bass, and drums on a stage. So I look at the church adapting the tools, from the music scene that I was very much a part of. So suddenly great PA systems, great microphones, great consoles, recording studios, iMag, that all came from, the live entertainment industry. And the church finally discovered it wasn't evil. I don't know what to say, but suddenly let's do it.
That's good. That's good.
Oh, and here's the deal. And guess what? You need very talented people that have high skills, high art to now operate this gear. And I'm very grateful that I got, invited into that. And I stayed there 21 years. And I'm still very, very connected to it. I look at the support system for the local churches on a faith-based thing. They believe in Jesus, they believe in the church. And in a lot of ways, giving has not gone down because they believe that that's where their help comes from. And churches, very quickly, very cumbersomely, very clunky at times, figured out streaming. And thank God for YouTube. Thank God for, people like you guys that are there to answer questions. I mean, the one thing I figured out in life is that men make the call because your brothers and sisters want to see you succeed, and they love giving away information, and they love to see you, figure it out. And if their knowledge helps you figure it out, they're more than willing to give it away. So
Absolutely.
that's kind of what I've been surviving in. Some churches even had budgeted to do like upgrades in their technology, whether it was video, audio, lighting. And the one thing that's very difficult about doing installs in a church is church doesn't stop. And, you have to flip everything for the Sunday morning service or the midweek service, and it just slows everything down. And it's just actually kind of a pain. Right now during COVID, if the church had budgeted for an install, which I've seen a lot of, they're completely renovating their main sanctuary spaces or whatever space, youth space, whatever, because they have the facility wide open for people to do these installs. So that's another positive. But the things that churches need to be doing right now, obviously, is having their streaming on par and the right gear. And I'm going to keep stressing this. It's the right people. It's the right people every single time before the gear. Okay. I mean, there's no magic black box. There's no plugin.
Yeah.
It's the person.
Right.
And so please value people over gear. That's what I'm going to say. So.
Absolutely.
We agree.
That goes back to our episode of skill versus gear, doesn't
That's
it?
right.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And a lot of what we're talking about here, can sound, but it's the state of where things are. And so we don't want to separate ourselves from that. We are actually in the middle of it. We're all in this together. And so some of this information is a little like, oh, it's a Debbie Downer kind of thing. But, you know, there is hope. You know, they are working on things. And I am hopeful for 2021. You know, and I think a lot of artists and people have gotten to get creative, right? And just do what you have to do. Is his name Zito? Is that his name, Scott?
Yeah, Zito.
Zito.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not super familiar with Zito. I just heard of him through like the Mix You guys and that sort of thing. But he's a front of house engineer, correct?
Well, Zito used to mix. I mean, the artist I remember him last with was One Republic, and
Right.
then he switched hats. He went tour manager, and
Oh, I see.
great guy. You know, and you're right. During this time, the word adapt is a huge word, and pivot. Yeah, and what a creative way to pivot and adapt was create the cinnamon roll company with his wife, and you know, it's doing extremely well.
Yeah.
Um,
Found a new career.
Great example.
Yeah, yeah, and I think a lot of people are having to do that, but even some of the artists who like are kind of back and forth, like, hey, I'm making a living, kind of doing my art, but then I'm bartending like on the weekends or whenever I'm in town. Like some of that has also been impacted. Like my job when I come back isn't there anymore, and the job that was my art isn't there anymore. So what am I doing? And so it's really hard to navigate, but people are getting creative, and I think there definitely is hope for 2021 and seeing what other creative ways we can kind of, you know, slice this apple, so to speak. So yeah, Todd, Michael, any thoughts that you guys want to add to that? I mean, things that you've been hearing or your personal perspective.
I'd like to put Scott on the hot seat for a minute and just being close to the industry. Where do you see the recovery? When do you see it happening? Any predictions you'd like to throw out there? What are people talking about? What do they
Get
think?
myself in trouble here. Well, no, I mean,
Unless you're
yeah,
right.
You can decline if you
well,
want.
no. I don't mind giving what I've heard through various Zoom calls that I've been on with really, really smart people that do these events at the highest level, whether they're an entertainment lawyer, whether they do even an event like Coachella, because they're, you know, trying to also figure this out and keep people safe and get the industry back. There seems to be a big contention on a vaccine. Nothing will happen until there's a vaccine. I've heard that. And sometimes even hearing that there's going to be a vaccine, there seems to be, from medical people I've talked to, a trial period that sometimes lasts a year. So to be honest, we're looking at 2022.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really what I've heard. I mean, Live Nation, you know, took the 2020 touring schedule and dropped it right on top 2021 and used the terms postponed. Your show's been postponed. That way they don't have to refund money. Okay, fine. But now looking, they're already canceling 2021. I was, you know, like swallowed hard when I saw NAMM 2021 was canceled. I'm like, oh boy. And
Yeah.
now the trickle down is getting in, you know, January, February, March, canceled. So there's going to be even more pivoting and more, you know, figuring this out. And so
Is it a
again,
liability thing, Scott? Is it a liability? Because churches are meeting, right? And I know big churches that are actually meeting right now. They're taking all the precautions, wearing masks, temperature checks, all of those things. And yet we can't have a concert of 2,000 people? Like, is it a liability thing? Is it an insurance thing?
right. Well, I think that's part of it. I think it has to do with the liability insurance. I think it has to do with who's going to pay for what. You know, I know people. I know obviously people that have gear sitting in warehouses absolutely want to get this thing going. But how to do it and how to do it right, and I mean, you can't just restart this industry because, like, venues are booked in such a way that things are piggybacked. You know, this artist is in this venue tonight. Now tomorrow, that artist, and to get all the gear moving and all the bus flow moving and all the rentals all lined up. Everything was staggered. There's a staggering in the system. You know, you can't just get everything up and going like that. There's going to be
from the
know,
venues as well. I mean,
right.
The industry thrives on packing out places.
Correct.
By social distancing them. You
just
to open a venue to get the support people in that facility, you know, costs X amount of dollars. And if you populate it with 20% of the people, it's a lost cause. You're not going to break even. You have to fill that place up, or it's not worth staffing it for the event, you know?
That makes sense.
Unless you want to triple the ticket cost, which probably is not going to happen either. So,
well, and let's get to the psychology of this thing. Why do you go to a concert? Man, when I go to a concert, I want my friends arm in arm, having a beer, having a laugh, singing along.
Yeah.
That's the experience. That's the emotional love for a live event. When you go see your favorite artist, it's a shared experience. To separate us by 6 feet and do this, you know, type of I don't know, it's just so sanitized.
Yeah.
It's not rock and roll anymore.
Punk rock, that's not punk rock, man.
That's not,
it's you know, and I get why some people go, heck, I'm just going to stream it from my killer home theater and sit on my couch, you know.
Yeah, but you'll never replace that live experience. I mean,
right.
A lot of times that's how you make your fans. You know, a lot of times people are like, yeah, they're cool, but then they go see you live and you hear Ryan Tedder hit notes that you didn't know existed, and you're like, wow, this is incredible. You know,
how many times have you gone to see your favorite band and learned about an opening band that you never heard about, and you're immediate fans of them, you know?
Well, my mind is going just so fast through everything we're talking about, because I don't know, it's really personal to me and really passionate to me, because, like, you know, the whole experience that we were just talking about. And if you look at the business side of this, artists don't make money anymore from product. They make money from putting butts in seats. And if you can only put 4,000 butts in a seat in a 20,000 seat venue, they're going to have to take that less, you know, and pass that on. In other words, they're not going to be able to hire the crews they hired, and they're not going to be able to have the productions they had, because they're not making the money to pay for those things.
You got to strip it down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, that's why there's so many sides to this thing.
I mean,
yeah. What's your ROI? Return on investment.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get that. And it's just a tough time, you know, but going back to what Michael said, yeah, man, there's been so many times where you go see, you know, an artist, and then you see the opening act, and it changes your life. You're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this band existed. And it like lifts you up. There's a thing about art, right? And I know that we're talking about the entertainment industry and everything, but like at the end of the day, the reason there's an entertainment industry is because it uplifts people. It inspires people. And in a weird way, it also gives them hope separate from church. So a lot of people who do not go to church, who do not believe in a God, this is where they go to get uplifted, right? To be with friends. And I think it's something that we're all missing. No matter what your background or worldview is, you are missing this, because there's something about it that just gives you life. And we're all missing that life.
Let me speak into that, because I have a brother that suffers from mental illness. Yeah. That's a very, very valid point. And mental illness right now is at an all-time high. I had a friend, his wife, that I talked to yesterday, who deals with this. And it's off the chain right now how many clients she has, because simple things like football and sports, or car racing, or anything live event is kind of a release, kind of a way for us to deal with the stress of life. And all those things are gone right now. And people are left to their own devices to figure this out. And, you know, self-medication comes into play now. If you don't have the football, or you don't have the baseball, or you don't have the concert, and you use those things to unhook, you're going to be in trouble, and that's a whole nother side. That's so vast. I don't even want to really get into it, but that's another unfortunate side effect to COVID within the live events industry, is the mental health problem that's happening right now.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, and I've not shared this with a lot of people that are close to me. So since 2018, I had my first panic attack ever in 2018 driving, like on 69 heading towards Lansing. And I've been on this journey of anxiety and depression since 2018. And these sorts of situations can definitely elevate those things. Before that time, I was very disconnected from it. But what you're saying right now, Scott, very much makes sense, because people will self-medicate. And, these things are relieving stress and giving life to people. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, because it's definitely something that's needed,
Well,
Um,
God created us that way. We are
yeah.
social people. That's what the
Yeah.
church
Amen,
is all
Todd.
about to begin with. We're getting together to worship, and we're not doing it alone. We are meant to be together, and that's going to cause problems. And I think that's what you're seeing in society right now. People are just wound up so tight, they're pointing fingers at each other like you wouldn't
Yes.
believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
turning them into things that normally they wouldn't be. They're just,
Yeah.
it's going to continue to get worse. So
Yeah,
I
I think we're
agree with
gonna
you,
have a
Scott, though. I think
major.
the whole
Yeah.
vaccine thing is a big deal. I hope they develop it quickly, and it's trustworthy. The worst thing I could see could happen is the vaccine come out, people don't trust it, or worse yet, it doesn't work quite as well as it would, and that would even delay things even farther. But from the people I'm talking to, yeah, and 2022 is kind of the next year on the marker. So for gathering of large events, seems like a long ways away, but
Yeah, I wanted to
Go ahead, Michael.
speak to that too in the church world, because obviously my church shut down for a period since Easter. We've been open for a couple months, but during that time, it was like I could only stream church so much. I was missing that connection in the lobby, talking to people, sitting next to them. And even now, you're a pew apart from people, or a seat, depending on what church you're in. But, and even then, there's a disconnect with the social gathering that it's just not the same, you know.
No.
Um, and I could tell you that I really had no desire to even go back to church because of that, that distancing with people. Um, Thankfully, my community was in the back room, the tech crew, and we were able to hang out in those two rooms. And I help out with broadcast still, but going to the corporate gathering, it's just not the same, and it's not how we were designed, you know.
Yeah, we're definitely designed for
Kind of
that
my 2 cents.
one-on-one, up close and personal. I want to, see you, hear you, be
Yeah.
in contact with you. It's just different. Like this conversation here would feel totally different if we were all in the same studio in 4 seats with 4 microphones,
Oh, totally.
all connecting. That's different than what we're doing right now. Although, we're still accomplishing what we want to do. It's just different, right? I would
Different vibe.
a different vibe. I would equate it to like a long distance relationship, like, hey honey, how you doing? I miss you, versus like a candlelit dinner. You're right in front of me and it's intimate, right? So that's a great point,
I
Michael.
look forward to candlelight dinner with you, Christian.
Oh man, I can't wait. We'll invite Todd and Scott. It'll be an
I'm
awesome
gonna.
time.
Well, and just to add to what you said, Michael, I've been going and hanging with church tech teams, and I was with one just yesterday, over in Chesterfield, Missouri, called The Crossing. And I'm a hugger. I like to shake hands, and we're doing all this weird like elbow bumping. We're even joking about it. That just some form of human
Yeah.
contact. It almost robs you, because you're really looking forward to seeing people in person at the same time. all this goofiness and the 6 feet distancing thing. And yeah, it messes with you. Todd, you're so right, man. We're human. We're supposed to be together. And we were built for that, literally built for that. And we're denying the very thing that God made us to enjoy, and that's each other. And yeah, it's hard.
Well,
Yeah.
we just have to believe God's got a plan in all this. Maybe it's when we get out of this whole thing, we'll treat each other a whole lot better than we have up till this
Amen
point.
to that.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be something. There's a reason for everything, right?
There is, but
This one's a hard one to see, but
Well, and we
these days
can't
we'll know.
gloss over that mental illness either, man,
That's
because
a big deal.
make sure you're connecting with the people that are closest to you. Because even in my life, I'm not one to get depressed, but I found myself in that very situation. And it's
Yeah, I
just
mean,
not my nature, you know?
when
So,
I'm Michael, what you're saying, what I've done, I walk 3 miles every morning, and I call people in that 3-mile walk that, and they're mostly all in the industry, just doing a check-in. And it's been amazing, the
yeah.
response on the other end of the phone at times. Because people are on islands right now. We're all siloed, and we've got to take initiative, be purposeful in these things. And if you're the one that's needing somebody to talk to, pick up the phone and call. You have to. Again, we're built to need each other and be with each other. And it's just not healthy. And, it's almost a Brene Brown thing right now. Vulnerability,
Yeah.
one of the biggest TED Talks ever, and there's no shame in any of this. There's no shame taking a plan B. There's no shame in calling a friend going, I'm not doing so well today. There's no shame in that. And do it. I mean, that's all I can say is
that's
make
quite
sure
the
you're reaching
opposite.
out to
There's
each other.
strength in that.
Right.
Major strength in that.
Yeah, but us guys are so good at calling for help when we need it, aren't we?
Yeah.
Well, and part
But well point. I mean, anyone's listening is to ask. There's, certainly we need to support those that need it and support each other. And that's a cool thing you do. Hadn't thought about that. I try to walk a little bit as well, but just get on the phone and call people. That's a great idea. Check in.
It makes the miles go way faster, let me tell you.
Oh yeah.
Takes the work out of it.
Yeah. I think it's twofold too. Sometimes it's our own pride separating us from others. Like, oh man, I don't want to admit that I need this, or it's I don't want to inconvenience anybody else, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna be a burden, and so we can talk ourselves out of just making that phone call or being in community for whatever reason. And the truth is like, no, like we're all the same. Like we all need it. And so I think all 4 of us admitting to that is a huge thing. So for anybody listening, like, yeah, just make sure you're in community. It's life-giving. And, and COVID is not helping. Yeah. But any other thoughts in regards to the entertainment industry in regards to COVID and how it's impacting us? Anything that we might have not said yet, Scott, that you might want to just kind of let our listeners and viewers in on?
I think we've done a good job covering the bullet points, and realizing there's just a whole group of talented individuals out there. I will add, when COVID started, a gentleman in Nashville started a Zoom call that I was in, and the guys in the Zoom call were some of the best in the industry when it came to front of house systems and monitor engineering. And it was kind of a time just to celebrate, hang out. I mean, most of these guys were in their 30s drinking really great bourbon at 1 o'clock in the afternoon because they had nowhere to be, and they were 30. And we did that for several months, and everybody thought July this was going to be over, and July came and went. And some of the pandemic unemployment assistance went too. There was maybe an extra $600 a week you were getting, that went away. A lot of these awesome men and women, you know, newly married, just bought the house, just bought the car, you know, no income. I mean, life was going very, very well. They were doing what they always had dreamed to do with some of the greatest artists they'd ever dreamed of working for. And so I'm seeing a lot of plan Bs. These exact people are driving for Uber, Amazon, FedEx. You know, one guy is cleaning pools. One guy is building decks. And these guys used to mix sound or fly PA for 60,000 people in an arena. That's the reality of what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And so
They've been
thanks for
robbed
having
of
this.
their passion, man. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
It's literally like a surgeon not be able to do what he does, and now he's got to go wait tables. Right? It's a sort
well, I
of
can't even do that because
Exactly.
restaurants aren't open.
Yeah.
All right, maybe they're building decks too.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. And so my heart goes out to everybody in the entertainment industry. I'm continually talking with a group of them that I know personally, and always trying to encourage and say like, hey, how you doing? Just giving them an encouraging word. And even offering like, hey, do you need help? What can I help with? How can I help you? You know, and these are friends, you know, so it's not like I'm calling up some random guy, but yeah. And so anything that we can be doing together to really help these people. I mean, you're talking what was it, 6 million in the United States? Is that the number?
I think that is correct.
I think that's correct. Yeah.
I mean, that's a ton of people who were well off beforehand, and all of a sudden everything just shut down, you know, the faucet stopped running. And so, yeah, my heart goes out to everybody, but you know, I am hopeful that things are going to come back, and they're going to come back even stronger than before. Why? Because we want it to. Not only do the people working in the industry want it to come back, us as the consumer, we want it to come back as well. We want to engage. I want to go hear my favorite bands. I want to go hear my favorite comedian. Whatever the case is, I want to engage with that. And so when it does come back, I think it's just going to be a new time almost, you know, especially for that first year when everything comes back. I think it's just going to shoot through the moon. And so I can't wait for that to happen.
I believe so too.
I expect some great music coming out.
There's
A lot of these, you know, I expect a lot of these artists are sitting in their bedroom creating something that's just amazing, and it's soon to be discovered.
A lot of COVID songs,
you know,
but like not COVID.
Yeah,
you know,
COVID songs.
A lot of COVID jokes, you know. No, but Scott, thanks so much for joining us today and just chatting with us. I do see us maybe coming back and possibly doing a part 2 to this in a number of months once, you know, things continue, because sports was canceled here in Michigan. They were absolutely canceled. The Big Ten was canceled for college. All high school sports and middle school sports were canceled. And all of a sudden, halfway through September, they're like, oh, no, we're going to do it. Like, we're back. You know? And so who knows what that's going to look like for the entertainment industry. Right now, it's nope, nothing. And by January, it might be like, yup, we're back. Everybody's going. And so that's my hope, is that the projections that we're talking about, although they may be wise and full of great data and information, hopefully we're able to learn some new things and see it come back sooner. So that's my hope. And if it does, or the sooner we get to that, we'd love to have you back on, Scott, to just talk about it all over again. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, we haven't talked anything audio with you. And that would be amazing. Just have you back on for Scott Ragsdale audio conversation. I think that would be a lot.
I would love it.
Yeah, and just talk about stories and, you know, how you approach things. And I think a lot of our people would also value that and learn from it. And because you have a ton of wisdom, man.
Well, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
Well, it was nice meeting you, Scott. I look forward to doing it someday in some arena somewhere.
Oh, come on.
Behind a big console.
Yes.
Yeah, that would
absolutely.